So, carrying on our week of National Volunteers Week and celebrating it and talking to our directors, our volunteer directors and Board Oversight, we're delighted here this morning to be joined by Gerry Finn, who has been a Board Oversight member with us now for around the last 3 years. So, Gerry, thanks for coming in for the chat. And I suppose the first thing I'd say to you is, what does volunteering mean to you?
Well, volunteering is sort of, I suppose it means what it says. It's acting in a voluntary, unpaid capacity, doing a sort of a service maybe for your local community. I think volunteering is extremely important. And for me, I enjoy volunteering because I'm retired now, so I like to give something back to my community. And I think the Credit Union is a very worthy organisation to volunteer for. So that primarily was my driving force for becoming a volunteer in the Credit Union.
And we're very your skill set on our Board Oversight, and I suppose this is the week that we can show some appreciation to people that volunteer with us. I suppose my next question to you would be, what inspired you to join the Credit Union in a volunteer capacity?
Well, I always admired the credit union movement, I suppose. I was a member, but not a very active member. I had a few pounds, I suppose, in the old days in the credit union, but I always liked what it did. I liked its ethos, and I liked the fact that it helped people in its own community, and it helped them in a very practical way by giving them loan finance, particularly in the earlier days, I suppose, for a lot of things that were necessary, particularly around the home, maybe, or education, or cars and things like that. But the fact that it was rooted in its community and it served its community, and I suppose the fact that it was run by volunteers appealed to me.
Yeah.
And also, I suppose, in the early days, what appealed to me was, I think, credit unions did a lot of good because they helped people who otherwise could perhaps have fallen into the hands of loan sharks or people like that. The fact that the credit union movement was there, I always thought was sort of inspirational in ways, you know. So that was the reason. And the second main reason then was that I had a particular skill set, as you said earlier on. I worked in, I suppose, as a civil servant, but a lot of my work was in sort of oversight in financial management control, audit and risk and all of that. So I was retired and there were skills which I had, and I felt, look, why not give them back to an organisation which hopefully could use them, and by doing so then you were helping that organisation and indirectly your local community.
I think, Gerry, you're really underselling yourself there now. You know, like I worked for the civil service. I think it's safe to say, Gerry, you're as good as any auditor. Let it be a monthly board meeting, or let it be even when the external professionals come in, you're definitely a challenging voice and a great asset to the around our table.
Well, yes, I suppose that's my skill set. I mean, it's neither overselling or underselling, but I worked a lot in European Union structural funds, and in that, guys, we were subject to quite a lot of audit by both the Department of Finance, by DG Regio, and by the European Court of Auditors. So for about 16 years, I was always dealing with auditors. So you get to know financial management and control. And after that, then I was chairman of the Western Development Commission. So I had experience in boards. And also for a number of years, I was chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. And for the Special EU Programmes body, they deal with all the peace funding in Northern Ireland. So I'm familiar with audit and risk in large organisations. And currently I'm chair of the Audit and Risk Committee for the GRETB. That's the Education and Training Board for Roscommon and Mayo. So that's my skill set, that's my background, and it's sort of it's ready-made for an organisation like the Credit Union.
Absolutely. And I suppose that's probably going to bring me on to my next question. Has there been rewarding moments for you since you joined Roscommon Credit Union?
There has.
Outside of the way your face delights when you when you find something of interest that mightn't have come up before. But
well, I suppose what I have found most interesting is the first time, I suppose, that I've got involved in a sort of a banking system. Like the credit unions are, in essence, they're a bank, albeit a locally owned bank, and the oversight and the not restrictions, but the oversight, I suppose, in particular, which credit unions have to deal with. I find that very interesting now, and maybe that's a bit technical, but that's the sort of background that I would have come. So I enjoy that, and but I enjoy particularly, though, I think the fact that Roscommon Credit Union is doing well, it's going well, it's run well, it has a good board of directors, it had a good manager, good management, and so from that point of view, you know, it's always nice to come in and work with an organisation that knows what it's about and knows where it's going.
Very good.
So from that point of view, that gives me sort of a bit of a buzz, I have to say.
That's
So
great.
that's why I enjoy coming in.
That's great. And I suppose moving on from that then, from sitting around the table, do you feel we're doing everything we can for our community?
I think, yes, by and large, I would say. I think the organisation and the board and the staff are aware of, and acutely aware of, I think, their position in the local community. And I think the fact that there's a board of directors who all come from the local community adds that extra dimension, I think. And I think, like, also, I think we're conscious of our role as a credit union, and I suppose how we might expand that role. So I find that interesting, and it's challenging because, you know, we I suppose traditionally operated as a very traditional credit union, but I think times are changing, and Roscommon Credit Union is going to have to change. So, and I think, like, we're dealing with that as we go along, and we're aware of the challenges, but we're sort of ready for those challenges. Let's put it
dealing
that
with them
way.
head on, I
And we're
suppose.
dealing with them as best we can, and it's not easy. Some of them are not easy, and it's going to present us with challenges. But look, that's what life is all about, I suppose, in some ways.
Gerry, to our followers and members watching here today, what advice would you give to somebody that's thinking about volunteering? It doesn't even have to be in the credit union context, just in volunteering in general.
Well, I think, I think volunteering can be both good personally for yourself, but also for the organisation. But just take about personally. I mean, there's a lot of self-satisfaction. There's a lot of, it's good for your mind and it's good for your body, but particularly for your mind, because I think doing something in a voluntary capacity and sort of giving back to your local community, it's good for yourself. It's good for you mentally, in particular. So I think anyone who's thinking about volunteering, you know, just think about that, but also think about your local community and perhaps what it needs, and think that you mightn't think it, but you could well have the skills that organisation needs, and you might be just utilising skills that you've learned for quite a number of years, you know. And I think it's a really good thing to do, you know. And I think organisations, we need volunteers. Actually, they're difficult to get. I'm involved in a couple of other things myself, and we're always struggling to get volunteers. So, like, if you think about it and if you're interested, just approach the organisation and you'll get a ready open door by and large, because people are crying out for volunteers. And, you know, you probably have more skills than you think you have, and they can be of benefit to the organisation and, as I say, to your local community.
And that's it. Gerry, thanks so much for
You're
the
more
chat
than welcome.
on this special National Volunteers Week, and we're delighted to have you around the table and involved in Roscommon Credit Union, and delighted to have had the chat today.
Thank you very much, Bernie.
Thank you. Yeah.